Hello and welcome to Insights, everyone. I'm Nnamdi Odipo.
And I'm Elizabeth Omori. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's edition of the program.
Rising incidents of death and murder cases related to ritual killings are raising concerns among people of goodwill all across the country. And so the craze for wealth, the fallacy and myth of ritual money, as well as the misconception of wealth as success is my focus on this episode of the program. Of course, Elizabeth is standing by to lead us in another direction in our slated conversation. Elizabeth?
Well, we'll also be taking a look at the lift of the ban on Twitter, its implication on our ICT sector, businesses and our economy. And some time ago, I had a chat with an ICT expert. We will be recalling that conversation.
Very well done. Let's kickstart the conversation. Incidentally, the belief in ritual money appears to be very strong in Nigeria. Otherwise, I would want to explain the rising and widespread cases of ritualistic related killings happening across Nigeria quite recently. Unfortunately, this belief has driven people to kidnap, to kill, and to mutilate other human beings. Ironically, some killing members of their own families. I have a panel with me to discuss this rather absurd craze for wealth, driven by the misconception that wealth is success and that money solves all of man's problems. All of my guests are joining me via Zoom. Ustaz Sharafuddin Ali Agon is Chief Imam. Nasfat Abuja, he joins us from here in Abuja, somewhere at the Central Business District. Reverend Father Leo Tenakoy, priest in charge of Holy Spirit Pastoral Area Biaji Kuba, also in Abuja. Here he joins us via Zoom, of course. And from Lagos, I have social media influencer and content creator Edgar Ariaka. Gentlemen, welcome to Insight. I'd like to just hurry this along so that we'll have enough time to, to look at this from different perspectives. But I'd like to begin by hitting the nail on the head and creating and ask you if you think there's a basis in common sense for the narrative that it's possible for a human head to vomit volumes of cash in the bedroom of a rich person, maybe a head that they've cut and severed, of course, and wrapped and set up in one altar somewhere in a room. How is that even possible for the devil to give free wealth to a person that he hasn't given to the herbalist or the native doctor in the first place? Is it possible, or do you consider that a myth? Sheikh, Ustaz, Chief Imam, please, I'd like to begin with you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. A'udhu billahi min shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We praise Him, we appreciate Him, we acknowledge His presence with us at all times. Like you were saying about the ritual killings for money and what have you, I want to begin by saying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us and has also created shaitan, that is Satan, alone. And a lot of things are happening that will push it to shaitan, that it is shaitan that has made us to misbehave in one way or the other. The first thing I want to say is that this thing we are discussing is not just happening. It's not a new thing, if you will agree with me. It has been there for long. It is just becoming rampant this time around. It is always becoming order of the day. The love for money that everybody is coming up with makes it more rampant. It has always been there. And as far as Islam is concerned, it is what you believe in that will come up to what you are struggling to have. Generally, and with common sense, when you go with divine sense, you will all believe that nothing can happen without the knowledge of Allah, without the knowledge of God, without the power of God. And common sense will also give us certain understanding, certain informations about what happens in our life. And we all believe that certain things have been given, God has given man certain opportunities, certain power to do certain things. One of those things that God has allowed man to do freely, then he's there to judge. He has shown us the wrong way, the right way. So whichever one we feel we want to go for, we go for it. And the nemesis and the rewards and punishment will catch up with anyone who goes to either of the way.
Father Leo, you've just said Chief Imam Nasfat Mox explain the fallacy or myth of ritual money. Is this a position you concur with? And how exactly does that deviate from the biblical injunction or inscription about God providing all of our needs according to his riches in glory? Is that perhaps what these young adults that we see gallivanting, if that is the word, and then committing these, wreaking this havoc all over the country doing?
Well, I will begin by appreciating you for inviting me to say a word or two on this program. I pray that as we're beginning this year with the Lord, as we walk with God, and as we never depart from his ways, he will guide us and he will prosper the works of our hands.
Amen.
I want to start with that, then let me go straight into your question.
Please.
The incessant ritual killings. The incessant ritual killings for the love of money has come due to the fact that those who we elected to govern us have not really done their part very well. If the electorate, those who we have elected to govern us, do their part very well, and what am I saying? Providing an economic balanced playground for everyone to struggle and get wealth, genuine wealth, not fake wealth, providing the necessary amenities, which are light, good roads, and constant water. If the government of the day are able to do this for the low man and woman out there, I think people will not be shifting to this rate of ritual killings to cut people's hair, human hair,
Yes.
and then make it into money.
Father Leo, I get that completely, and I agree with you 100% that government does have a major role to play in elevating, improving the well-being of the people. But like I did say at the beginning, at the onset of our program, I would like for us to create a basis for our discussion. I got Ustaz's opinion on whether or not ritual money or ritual money, I beg your pardon, is a myth or a fallacy, or if indeed it is true. You heard his impression of that. I would like your impression of that as well. I mean, looking at this from the religious angle as well,
I, in my own religion, we're told in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, from verse 33, the Word of God says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and its righteousness, and all other things will be added unto you." So in my religion, in Christianity, we do not in any way encourage or advise people to go to the level of killing a human being just for the sake of money. In fact, it is even against one of the commandments that God gave himself to Moses, which says, "Thou shalt not kill." So if from the viewpoint of Christianity, if there are Christians who delve into the acts of ritual killings for the sake of money, then they are going out. They are going out of the command of Jesus. And if you want to trace this even from the creation account, you realize that from the creation story, God said after man disobeyed him by eating the forbidden fruit, God said, "Man, for you to eat and put food on the table, you must toil hard and labor under the sun." So with that, every legitimate wealth that is to come to anybody, that person must work hard, and then with God on him or her side, it will now yield to what? Fruit that has come from his hard labor, but not going into a very short means to stifle someone's life in the name of wanting to make fast money.
Okay, great.
It's
So
not
I
really
began
upheld in
with
Christianity.
creating a religious basis, knowing fully well that as a people we're deeply religious, and in fact we're a deeply religious nation. And just so I make this clear, because I do know that even in Islam, the Quran is quite specific, on the issue of killing, whether knowingly or unknowingly, and prescribes certain measures for committing murder knowingly, and also certain measures for committing murder unknowingly. So I think the two dominant religions in Nigeria are quite clear on the punishment of murder, of committing murder. But having said that, I quickly like to cross over to Edgar. And, we talk about the philosophy of success, the culture of excellence, and the imperatives of meritocracy in a society. But you're a content creator, and so I would like to ask you, I mean, the social media is a culprit in throwing up in the flagrant display of wealth, unexplainable wealth. And it's quick to promote some of these people or persons as success story. I mean, how do you make sense of that, Edgar?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. Yeah, I mean, I always say that most youths are driven by what they see, what they hear, and what the information that they get. So for social media, it is crazy the amount of people who come up and present themselves as wealthy, as rich, based on what they have. But of course, the more that is sold as a level, the more people would always want to rush for these things. The more people would want to desire wealth. The more people would want to, make it a priority to make wealth as fast as possible, because at the end of the day, their mentors, their stars, the people they look up to are doing it so well. And sadly, the message is that if you post 2, 3, 4 content, you are making so much money. So I think that is just one thing. A lot of youths are just looking for ways to make as much money as fast as possible. So, yeah.
We'll come back to that, and then I'll take you more. I'll take you up on some other issues like underlining elements. But then let me go back to our clergymen, and then we cannot deny the not so subtle portrayal of success dominant in Nollywood films that often depicts utilization of rituals of sacrifice to generate contests in which wealth and riches are possible as a major factor. Is it possible that young persons are today lending themselves to that fantasy, believing that all things are somewhat possible, and that the movies are reflective of life itself? They already say so. Would you, Ustaz, would you completely absolve Nollywood of any blame in this matter?
They have their own faults, and they are to be blamed on certain areas of their captions, of their movies, of what they show to our teenagers. You see, let me give an example of a film that has to do with robbery. When they sit down in their comfort rooms and watch how you can rob successfully, you are actually passing a message into their brain. And sometimes our youth, some of them are free, maybe bringing their break, and at the same time giving freedom at their respective homes. So they have that opportunity to watch different kind of films. Even these ritual killings we are talking about, you understand? Though in some films they say this film is restricted to people who are above 18. We have always been seeing that. But I can watch anything on my phone this time around. So there's need for a check and balance in the kind of films we show to people everywhere. There's need for it. Government has to come in. And I'm in total agreement with my brother, the father, that government is not doing enough economically for people to live fine. But they also have to come into this regulating the kind of film they show us. I mean, the Nollywood. It's also another serious problem to our youth today. I totally agree that Nollywood have their problem. The kind of films they show to our youth, even you as an adult, what you watch sometimes you don't really like it. And Islamically, this is not good because we are actually impacting wrong things, wrong way of life to our youth, and it is not going to take them anywhere other than satanic way of life. That is my understanding.
I can understand, Ustaz, that yes, Nollywood does share in the blame, but Father Leo, I don't know. Is this something you agree with? Earlier on, I talked about the imperatives of meritocracy in a society, and I took up Edgar on the issue of flagrant display of and the display of wealth in the social media space. One of the places we see that is also on Nollywood, but you and I would know that it's a make-believe life. Movie producers would argue that the stated moral intent of these films is to present a form of bad behavior in order to discourage people from engaging in them. Father Leo?
Yeah, thank you so very much. Just like my brother, the Imam, said, I'm also in line with him on the impact of Nollywood films to our teeming youths, to our young ones, and to even the elderly in the society. There is one thing to shoot a movie. The producer who is shooting that movie has what he has in mind to sell across. And then the other thing again is the viewers. How do they receive these movies? How do they view these movies? How does these movies affect them? You see, so building from that standpoint, I think one of the first, I'll begin by acknowledging Nollywood. At least it has also brought to the world that we Africans too, we can match head to head with the other Hollywood and Bollywood all over the world. So my own little advice or take on this issue is that producers of Nollywood movies, before you produce this movie, you should weigh the pros and cons of this movie. And then when you weigh the pros and cons, the pros is how will this movie impact positively to the life of both the children, the youths, and the elderly. Now, after weighing the pros and seeing the impact, you weigh it. Is the positive impact more or the negative impact will be more? So when you weigh this, then the question comes, the movie you are producing, how will it benefit Nigerians? Like in what we are talking about now, in terms of ritual killings and all this. Most of our Nollywood movies, they produce things like that. And then you see the viewers, those who watch, depending on your level of understanding, maybe they are producing this movie to let their audience know that such ritual killings for money's sake is not really worth it, or it is not encouraged, or it is not something that a civil, responsible Nigerian should engage in. But as I said, content received will be different from other people. Some youth may take this movie, yes, you are telling us this, but they have learned some techniques. And then once they see it, depending on their level of understanding and level of upbringing, some will want to act. And in acting it, you see them going gradually into what? Ritual killers. And once they do they're successful, of course, you want to try again. And in trying again, the whole thing about the ritual killings, instead of reducing, it will continue to increase. Now, one other thing I want to add, most movie producers, if you are producing a movie, normally you say this movie is for this age grade and not supposed to watch this parental care, PGA, Parental Care Association.
Yes.
But if you say that, you, the producer, have said it, the parents or those who buy this movie, who have these youths, who have these children, are they there to make sure they put this into use, preventing their children from watching? No.
Father, what you just talked about might seem trivial, but it is absolutely not. It is very germane to this issue. It is very germane to the issue of family values and upholding family values, and ensuring that these children imbibe these values and grow up with them, and like the Bible says, so that they do not depart from that way as they grow.
Exactly.
You know,
so the point I want to make before you cut me in is that
please go ahead.
parents
Please go ahead and
have
land.
a major role to perform. Parents and guardians. Leaving your children alone, you go to work, you come back, you don't know what they watch. And these days, it's even beyond the film. I mean, the television. We have the handset.
Yes.
Most parents buy their children Android phones.
Yes.
You don't know the content they download into these phones. And these phones are with them 24/7. They are in their rooms, they are with the phones, and the way the children operate these phones, some of us adults, we don't even know even a bit of it, you know.
You've raised some very fundamental issues, and I consider them quite significant to our discourse. Well, let me just come over to you, Ustaz Sharifuddin. I'd like your thoughts on the rather paradoxical issue of poverty in Nigeria, especially in terms of hunger in the midst of plenty, and how the extremely rich, I mean, especially those with unexplainable sources of wealth, are allowed to thrive in the full glare of hard-working average Nigerians who literally have to struggle genuinely each day to make ends meet. Honestly, some people have said that, Ustaz, that we have more rich Nigerians today with unexplainable wealth than before. And that in itself is a driving factor for this craze for wealth and wealth over merit. How do we promote and engender merit, ensure that merit is systemic rather than the unnecessary display of wealth?
Well, thank you very much. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. You are bringing us to the concept of leadership, if I get it right. The issue of leadership as far as...
Is it a function of leadership? Can it not be personal? Can I not choose, for instance, now that, look, Nnamdi, I have this, but I do not have to go out there on the social media and put it that I'm going to USA to vacation. And then I sit in first class, and then I recline in my seat, and then, at the expense of the man who is probably there and has worked for 10, 12 years and is struggling and perhaps doesn't even have money to eat on that day, and maybe somewhat he has a 2 gig or 10, 20 megabytes on his phone, and by chance he goes to the social media and that's the first thing he's seeing. He's seeing a relatively young Nnamdi Odipo reclining in the first class seat and saying, small boy with big God and something. I mean, is that government's wahala? If you pardon my pidgin.
It all boils down to the moral issues we are having in our community, in our country, and based on our religion. You see, show off are coming up on social media in the first place, as far as Islam is concerned, is not encouraged. The first thing is, Rasulullah, the messenger of Allah, has encouraged us to eat from our own personal labor, from our sweat. Whatever you can struggle and lay your hand up, whatever you are able to do, the best things you can consume in terms of foods and life material is what you get from your own sweat. In fact, he says for a responsible man to go into the bush, collect some firewood, put it together, bring it to the town and sell. It's better than him begging around or looking for other ways of making unnecessary wealth. That's a part. And number two, going on social media, trying to let people know what they are up to, you have arrived, is totally against the sunnah, the way of the Holy Prophet Muhammad. He says, whatever you do, try to hide yourself in whatever you are doing, whatever achievement you have made. To me, is nonsensical. If you are trying to display your wealth on social media, it doesn't make any sense. And mind you, those who display it possibly have not made that money lawfully. that have not made it in the right way. Because a right, sensible man will not come on social media and be displaying unnecessary things. This is my house. This is the kind of flashy cars I ride. This is what I have achieved in life. It is completely out of it. And there's no way we discuss all this without mentioning the concept of our leadership. There's need for regulatory body for every sector of our life. We need to manage certain things. We need to curb certain things. We need to put check and balances on certain issues. This also boils down to our leadership. They should have control of everything. As a Muslim, nobody you are not expected to display wealth whatsoever in any manner, not to talk of on social media. It is tantamount to kufr, disbelieving in God. If actually you have gotten it in the right way, in a lawful way, such display will not happen. And Allah will not forgive that because it will lead so many people astray.
Thank you so much, Ustaz, for taking us down that lane and bringing up the issues that you have, Islamically. Thank you so much for doing that. Edgar, I had wanted to come to you, but Ustaz just raised a couple of issues. I'd like to take up Father Leo on some of these issues that Ustaz has just outlined for us, or just pointed out, rather, for us. And still along the line of throwing up merits over display, unnecessary display of wealth. Father Leo, it's interesting to note that it isn't just on the social media that we see people display wealth. We see that happen in the church. We see that everywhere across Nigeria, happen in religious institutions. And the church, the mosques, these are institutions that, that they are the core of our very existence. Shouldn't they, be taking a lead in remolding our consciousness, in recouching our attitude, in redirecting some of these happenings and events? Where are we, or is the church, and I'm not going to say just the church now, so I'm saying religious institutions, are they failing in this mandate, in this task?
Well, what I want to say here is, generally, anyone who is civil, anyone who is learned, anyone who is exposed, you should know that there is no reward, there is no fame in just carelessly showing off wealth, whether legitimately gotten or illegitimately gotten. I don't think any right-thinking person will just go to the social media and be flaunting his wealth, go to the church and be flaunting his wealth. No. In fact, with the situation we find ourselves, even if you are not right thinking, even if you are not well learned,
it's not even security wise.
Yes, you should be conscious of the situation within us. So even if no one should, there is no reward for ignorance that you don't even know that you are supposed not to do this, even within the framework we find ourselves now. So like the church, we encourage, we advise that most people in your giving to God, just as Christ instructed, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. The Bible itself, Christ himself, has encouraged we, his faithful, that your giving should be done in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. But the temperaments or the makeup of human beings are different. Some persons, if they give and they don't make their name known, they feel as if they are doing them a disservice. They will want to make sure that their names are announced. The morning they announced.
Yes.
For whatever gain, which I don't know they gain from that, well, it's best known to them. But any civil, right-thinking person, even without the security situation or not, your giving should be done according to how Christ instructed. Do not flaunt your giving. If you do that, you will have your reward. And what is the reward? The praises you will get from people, even though some of these praises are not from the heart, but from the mouth. And then some, in praising you, will start even planning your up and down, and then because you don't know who is who. So I want to use this medium to encourage both those who get, in fact, especially those who have legitimate wealth in giving, give in a very civil and in a very, 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 very matured way. There is no need, there is no gain flaunting whatever you have. I mean, it doesn't really speak well of whoever.
Very true. Very true. Edgar, I'd like to come to you next, and any of our clergymen can actually respond afterwards if that is possible. But I'd like to talk about the massive impact and the power of the social media. Not just the social media, the television, the media generally, and how massive it is. Well, I made allusions to this earlier on about the social media being a platform to flaunt make belief. Sometimes not just make belief, sometimes outrightly fake lifestyle, deceiving people. You know, I mean, it will seem like I'm very, but it can be painful sometimes. Well, we've had instances where some people commit suicide after they've gone to the social media and seen a fake lifestyle, and they, in order to meet up, in order to imitate or to meet up, they find themselves in very ugly situations and positions. How can we begin at this point to regulate and control content, if it's possible? Is that, I mean, government has somewhat tried to come with some bill, some law, I beg your pardon, to regulate social media. But how can we balance control regulation with content that promotes positive values?
Can you hear me properly?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
All right. First of all, I just want to say that, not everyone on social media, not every influencer out there, not every content creator
and I agree.
Uses
I agree with you there.
Their money through a very illegal means.
But Edgar, you would also agree with me that there's a preponderance of the other side.
I feel that we don't do a lot of research because, trust me, if you begin to do your research on the amount of money made from Facebook, made from YouTube, made from social network itself, especially when it comes to advertising for brands, different forms. If you begin to ask yourself,
20 billion in the last quarter of 2021. In advance, yes. Currently second to television. So, I mean, the data are out there, so I can relate. I understand what the data say.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm talking in terms of content and volume of content now. And I appreciate that the social media has done so much. I understand that it has created jobs. I understand that it generates fund. I just dropped some figures for you there. So, but that, for me right now, isn't the case in the context of our current and our ongoing conversation. Yeah. So I was talking more about balancing, creating some sort of balance between regulation, control, and content.
Okay, let me say this. Let me say
please.
this, okay? Every content, every social network out there has its rules and regulations. There are some content you cannot post on some social network. For example, nudity is not allowed on Instagram, but it is okay on Twitter. All right.
Okay.
The moment you begin to create new laws based on nation standards, for example, the moment Nigerians begin to influence the laws of social network, we remove the opportunity of choice. In 2010, 2008, the importance of Instagram, or whenever it was created, was just to show pictures, just to show how well you're doing. No one saw it as a problem. But later on, it became a business in itself. Now, the reason why a lot of people post their pictures, they post their houses, they post their cars, is because of the word called branding. Branding is important in the business. Why do people want to get verified on Instagram? Why do they want to be verified on Twitter? Why do they want to be well known? Because it pushes the business, it pushes the name. Now, if you see someone who has made over 10 billion, 20 billion, I'm sorry, not billion, maybe 10 million, 20 million, it increases the rate card of that person. That person can charge some more because this person is doing so well in the media space. So branding is important in the business. Social media has moved from the place where you just want to show your pictures to your friends and family. It has become a business in itself.
Okay.
So, like I was saying earlier on, the moment the government is involved in the rules and regulation of this social network created by mostly the Western world, they affect the room for choices. Every movie you watch on TV, every movie you see out there, every skit has a message. Every movie has a central thing they're trying to pass across. All right? But the most important part is what are the audience getting from these movies? What theme, what message are they getting from these movies? Now, you would agree with me that if you watch an American movie where a guy jumps down from a plane or from a helicopter, no matter how safe his landing is, no Nigerian will want to try it one day to say, let me jump down because, oh, this guy made it look so easy. No. But because of the opportunity that they see in these movies that, oh, I can get rich by killing someone that the movie has portrayed. That may not even be the theme of the movie, but because the movie has portrayed that theme in itself, there is a room for that opportunity to try it out and maybe change the rule the person made in that movie that made the person, that got to the point where the person had to confess before the person died or, But there's this room to say, you know what, let me try it out for myself to see if I can, one, make the money, and two, if I can turn the other way around. So I don't think there should be a regulatory board because at the end of the day, these apps already have rules, they have settings. All right. I just feel that a lot of people want for influencers, whenever they are posting some of their assets, they should always learn to inform the public, which is not even compulsory anyway. Because at the end of the day, a Dangote will not sit you down and tell you ABC of how he made his money. But I'm just saying it is always important that influencers should post videos, post content, and inform the public that, oh, they should always speak against these things. They should always come out once in a while to say, but it would not stop. My overall message here is that it would not stop whoever is interested. All right? No matter the song, no matter the video, no matter the movie, those who are deliberately made up their mind to do bad will do bad.
Edgar, I understand what you're saying. I'm a young person myself. I understand the concept of branding, and it's not even age restrictive. It cuts across persons of all age, depending on what you do or the kind of business or whatever you do that you need to put yourself out there as a brand. I get that, but in terms of content, I'm making reference to take the hip-hop scene, Nigeria's hip-hop scene, for instance, and then look at some of the lyrics of some of the songs that you see out there. I would not mention names at this point, but you know for a fact that some of these lyrics would only lead one to perdition if you follow them. That's exactly what I'm talking about, Edgar.
To be honest with you, you are totally right. Right from the time of the Yahoozes, right from the time of, songs like Maga Don't Pay. When you hear a song like Maga Don't Pay, of, Naramali, Am I Yahoo Boy, and all those other songs. A lot of times, that is why I say the youths are always, pressured to listen to the things that they listen to and the people that they refer to as their idols.
Yes.
We're not saying that these are the only songs that are out there, but sadly, these are just some of the songs that attract the mass, the most people. All right. So I would say art cannot be caged. Art cannot be blocked. It is always going to be. We'll always allow art to be self-expressive.
I completely agree. Art is life. I mean, you can't stop it. It evolves.
Exactly.
It evolves. It's a reflection of life, basically.
Exactly.
Yes, I do agree with you there, Edgar. Unfortunately, Edgar, we are out of time. Father Leo, Ustaz Sharifuddin, I would very quickly, if it's possible, like to get your closing remarks, real quick, please. And I am saying this against the backdrop of prevailing situations across the country. We have instances, we see cases where there are property owners in major cities across Nigeria. I mean, who would only lease their property to people that we call Yahoo boys. There are hotels across this country who encourage these same persons to come to patronize them just so they can help them sustain their businesses. There are parents who in communities who, I mean, well, there are parents, and it's a fact, who would point to their teenage sons and daughters or their young adults and tell them, look, why don't you go do what this person is doing, so that we can escape this circle of poverty. I mean, I know we do not have time, but very quickly, as your closing remarks, what do we do at this point to reorientate? Because you've mentioned government, but can we not start this change from the family and build it up, which is the closest unit, and build it up gradually till we get to the top? I'll start with you, Father Leo, very quickly.
Very quickly, thank you so much. As you know, one of the Holy Father, Pope John Paul II, who is a saint, once said that the family is the domestic church. You want your children to grow to be of good morals, good spiritual persons, and then people to be children that will be civil. It begins from the home.
Gentlemen, it's been quite an enlightening conversation. Of course, I know there's much more to talk about, but for time constraints, we do not have the time. I'd like to thank each and every one of you indeed for being part of this program. Ustaz Sharifuddin Aliagun, Chief Imam, Nasfat Abuja, it's been a pleasure having you here on Insight. You're a regular on Insight, so I mean, of course, we hope to see you sometime real soon. Reverend Father Leo Tane Koech, priest in charge of Holy Spirit Pastoral Area Biaji here in Abuja. It's been a delight having your perspective and take on most of the issues that we've raised. And of course, there is internet influencer, content creator Edgar Ariaka. I mean, it's been a pleasure, delight having you here to have your insights on this rather important issue. I'd like to thank you all, gentlemen, for being part of Insight today. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Up next is Elizabeth Omorui with more on Insight.
Nigeria has lifted the ban on Twitter, restoring access to millions of users 7 months after it clamped down on the social media site in a row over Twitter's decision to delete a post by the president. The government said the company had agreed to its conditions on the management of unlawful content, to registering its operations in Nigeria, and to a new tax agreement. How can Nigeria leverage on the new agreement? Some time ago, I had a chat with an ICT expert, Nasir Sadiq. Let's recall that conversation. Thank you so much for joining us, Nasri, on the program.
Thank you for the invitation.
So, what does this portend for our ICT sector, the latest development?
The latest development, it's very good. And we need to understand that this is an innovation that is operating within the digital economy. Okay, this is a new economy, especially in the era that we're talking about moving away from the oil-based economy. Globally, you would look at a lot of countries have set deadlines where they would stop using cars that are powered by petrol. So we need to start looking long-term. okay, if all these countries are moving away from these resources that we value so much and treasure in this country, how do we survive in the next 50 years? How do you survive in the next 100 years? So this this is a new development because it's now reshaping our thinking towards this building this digital economy. Now the question is, how do we move on? The federal government recently unbanned unbanned Twitter, means that it allowed Twitter to operate. So now it has set goals and targets for Twitter to operate within certain constraints. So it means that Twitter should respect the Nigerian laws. Twitter needs to set up a local contact office here in Nigeria. So that means that Twitter and the Nigerian government can have these discussions around building the digital economy. Twitter will be allowed to operate freely as much as it can within the confines of the Nigerian constitution. So it's a good thing because it would allow all these people that have been deprived from operating their businesses to come back and start operating their business within this system of Twitter. It's an open conversation that includes the broader Nigerians, but we need to keep in mind that, look, we cannot allow certain things to operate within that social media. For example, this insurgency. Another topic that we need to talk more on is the cyberbullying.
I would like to ask you this question because it looks like regulating social media platforms is difficult. With your experience in the field, in the sector, why is this so?
It's very, very difficult to regulate it because it's the social media space is actually very broad. It exceeds the shore of Nigeria. I mean, you have people on Twitter that Twitter, Facebook, and all these other platforms that probably are Nigerians or non-Nigerians from other sectors of from other parts of the world. I mean, Facebook, if you look at it, they have a lot of users. I mean, if Facebook was a country, it would have been one of the largest countries in the world simply because they have a number of users. So that makes it very, very challenging. But of course, at the same time, we need to look at ways in which we can regulate this industry. There are a lot of tools right now that are used for this social media, like to do sentiment analysis, to see what kind of discussions are going on Twitter and other social media platforms. And it's important for the regulatory authorities to actually be in the know of the conversations that are taking place on the social media platforms using the various tools that are available. And the idea is a lot of movements start from this social media space, and if they are not curtailed, it can lead us into the wrong direction. And the regulation is not something we just pull out a card and say, okay, this is it, we're doing this. It's something that it has to be carefully considered. It has to look at the various interests of the various stakeholders to ensure that Nigeria is moving towards the right direction and using these social media platforms in the right way.
All right, let's talk about the economic effect of the ban. Multiple reports have it that Nigeria lost over $1.2 billion. The suspension. This is quite huge. What are your thoughts?
Importantly to understand is, even though there was a ban in place, there was a lot of people that were actually active on social media and still carry out. But we need to look at how much percentage of people were taken off that social media, because I know some particular individuals were actually off social media completely because of the ban. Though some people were using virtual private networks to go on the networks, which the government seriously discouraged because of the possible implications that we have. But it's important to know that, yes, there were financial losses that were acquired in the process, and we need to look at how do we address these kind of losses in the future. For example, perhaps when there's a ban that would come in place, there should be like a timeline or a window that would allow other people that use social media, that depend on social media platforms, perhaps to look for alternatives, perhaps. But the idea is there's no blueprint as to what is the best way forward, because a lot of these things are innovations, and with innovation it becomes really, really hard to make predictions what would happen in 5 years, what would happen in 6 years. But we just need to be on the lookout for the direction of things, especially with regards to these economic activities that are happening on social media.
All right, if I get you correctly, there is no blueprint to guard against such recurrence. So what do we do?
Well, that's why we need to engage more of the stakeholders, so that, like, for example, the users of these social media platforms, now that Twitter is coming on board, like in Nigeria, there needs to be, like, for example, if they're going to release a new version of Twitter that would cater or would have XYZ features. It's important for Twitter to actually engage the federal government and say, okay, look, not just Twitter, but all the social media platforms, and say, okay, look, we're bringing out a new feature that would address a certain and so it will allow the user to do XYZ. Does that agree with the Constitution of Nigeria? So that's one way to go about it. I mean, it's fine and good for the social media platform to release out new versions, new features that would allow the users to be able to do things. But at the same time, those things should be in line or in conformity with the conventions of Nigerian laws.
All right. I'm just thinking out loud. Shouldn't we have our own social platforms where we can do a thing? Because the Twitter is peculiar to the Americans. So what are experts doing in this regard?
Well,
I ask because you're one of them.
Yes, thank you for that acknowledgement. Innovation is very, 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 very difficult. Like, for example, it's almost impossible to predict what application would go viral in Nigeria. So, because every application sorts of caters for a certain segment of the global economy. For example, when Facebook started, it was addressing the needs of the communities, a community within Harvard University. Then later up, it scaled up to broader Americans, and then of course everybody else latched on it. So, but looking at the local content perspective, my words would be to the entrepreneurs that are based locally that are trying to come up with solutions. I've seen a number of solutions, and I can tell you that Nigerians are probably some of the most resilient, hardworking, and most innovative individuals around the world. For whatever application that is built in America, I can tell you that there are young minds in Nigeria that can sit down and build something equivalent. But of course, we need to encourage all the stakeholders that within the industry, okay, let's start looking inwards. Okay, there's a new social media platform out. Let's evaluate it. And that's where perhaps our Kannywood and our Nollywood come in. For example, when you push out a new app, it shouldn't just be an app that sits on the social media, on the internet space. It needs to be something that you actually have to promote by perhaps leveraging on the celebrities, trying to promote it. And then eventually Nigeria has a population of 200 million or a little over 200 million. Yeah. And I can tell you a large chunk of that is they're actually on using smartphones to actually access this device. So the thing is, we have the capacity, we have the manpower, but we just need that opportunity, give that local content a chance to be able to thrive. And for the innovators, for the local content, it needs to be as good as those ones coming out from Silicon Valley in America so that they can be globally competitive. Because when you build an app, you shouldn't just build it for the Nigerian market. It should be something that can scale up to all our brothers in West Africa and our friends in China. It should be something that the broader economy, global economy can use. Because if it's too particularized to Nigeria, there's that tendency that it's limiting itself. Like the application would probably die before it even get lifted. So this is this is an interesting discussion that we're having around building an innovative platform that would actually make Nigerians comfortable, make Nigerians own it, make Nigerians feel that, okay, they have something that is ours.
It means we need to look inward and then think outside the box. Nasser Sadiq, thank you so much for your thoughts on Insight this week.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much.
And that's it on this episode of the program. Do join us same time next week for more on Insight. My name is Nnamdi Odikpo.
And I'm Elizabeth Omori. We'll see you next week. Stay safe.
This week on Executive Discuss.
In the night, I was sleeping. Then somebody said, you can now mix the herbs.
Who was the somebody?
I don't know. You can now
But
mix
you're
the herbs.
sure that
yes,
you heard the voice?
The voice said you can now mix the herbs. So I went back. I remember my grandmother telling me, and then later on telling my mother. I gave Zainab something.
Don't forget to send in your messages.
There's a difference between picking, child, and issue. بأيديكم إلى التهلكة. That is this. Can do more with less people.
If we have a better way of addressing these issues, taking care
Congratulations, you've been able to sign Timo Werner from RB Leipzig.
So you take water before your workout.
People have used their phone, using TikTok to do this.
Should I go for test?
A lot of people don't even have resources.
I'm Cecil, and this is the Medley Show on NTA.
NTA Tuesday Live, analytical, in-depth, educative and interactive on national issues accommodating all sides of opinions.
We as a people have understood that we have to fight corruption before it fights us back.
Poverty has a financial index, so it should be fought also with a financial weapon. Give it to the social investments program. It has been a very courageous battle.
Tuesday Live, every Tuesday at 10:30 p.m. Join us. NTA Parliament is a dedicated 24-hour channel that broadcasts activities of the Nigerian Senate, Federal House of Representatives, and all the 36 state houses of assembly. NTA Parliament, strengthening Nigeria's democracy.
Arts and culture have been described as veritable tools to promoting national unity. It is true that in a multi-ethnic society like Nigeria, national cohesion may be a little difficult to attain, but it is, however, not an impossible task if the will is there. The history of all the ethnic nationalities in Nigeria is replete with astonishing breakthroughs that have become the cynosure of all eyes, especially to visitors who come to Nigeria from different parts of the world. Though the greatest challenge facing Nigeria is the threat to its national unity, there have been institutions promoting values which continue to keep the nation united, such as Unity Schools, National Youth Service Corps, the National Theatre, cultural sites and monuments. Others are drama, music, festivals, food, and variety of social interactions like marriages and business engagements. How can Nigeria leverage on the abundant, rich cultural heritage to promote national unity? These issues and more will be discussed in Panorama, coming to you live from the Lagos Network Center of the Nigerian Television Authority. And a quick reminder that you can also follow us live online on our Twitter handle at NTA News Now, on Facebook, Network News, and on our YouTube channel, NTA Live. And not forgetting our website, nta.ng/live. I am Adeola Komiakere. The federal government has averted aviation union's industrial unrest scheduled to kick off February 8. The suspension was due to a satisfactory response to the two issues affecting the unions. Minister of Labour and Employment Chris Ngige informed the media that all the agencies that have not paid the national minimum wage should write to National Salaries, Incomes and Wages Commission through the Ministry of Aviation for consideration and evaluation.
agencies should be reviewed by the National Salaries, Incomes and Wages so that they will find out whether there are adjustments to be done. And if that is so, those adjustments should be effected and sent to Presidential Committee on Salaries for approval.
That the issue of condition of service affecting agencies under Aviation Ministry is to be addressed together with its financial implications.
Have been done and submitted many years ago, some up to 3, 4, 5 years. Meeting concluded that this is not in good step, and we wanted to take a more proactive step to conclude the review of this condition of service.
It's basically two issues, and they've been resolved amicably, and they will be implemented. And our word is our bond.
Correspondent Emmanuel Ayimiro reports that the meeting concluded that by the end of first quarter of 2022, the Aviation Ministry should ensure the approval, release and implementation of the reviewed conditions of service for all workers in the agencies under Aviation Ministry. Dirt petrol stations in some parts of Lagos as motorists commuters lament loss of man-hours.
This scenario is not unusual during perceived fuel shortage.
I don't queue for Niru. They say fuel finish. That early in the morning, before I come queue here now. Till 9 o'clock till now, I never see fuel buy. Manager say fuel don't finish. But now some cars, they park for back, they now open gate for them, they enter.
Although nobody was able to state for a fact that there is fuel scarcity, many attribute the situation to there is sufficient fuel for Nigerians. This commuter said she has been waiting for hours to get transport to her destination.
People say that some filling station they are closing. Yes, but I don't know whether there is no fuel. I don't understand.
For this commuter, however, it was different on the mainland.
When I was coming to work in the morning, I did not see any queue in the filling stations. But I'm shocked that on coming to Island, there are queues.
The stations visited along Awolowo Way on Victoria Island were not dispensing the product, while the fuel selling had long vehicular queues, which caused a bit of traffic along Amadubelo Way. Commuters are apprehensive that with this situation, there will be a hike in transport fares and are calling on relevant authorities to address the situation speedily.
The 38th session of the Authority of Heads of State and Government of African Union has suspended the decision by the chairman of the AU Commission, Musa Faki Mahamat, to grant an observer status to Israel. Consequently, a 7-man committee of African leaders, including President Muhammadu Buhari, has been set up to critically analyze the situation and make recommendations on the best way forward in the interest of the continent. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports that the president is back in Abuja.
The chairperson of the African Union Commission had in July last year taken a decision to grant Israel observer status at the AU, an action that came barely 2 months after an outbreak of violence in the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Musa Faki Mahamat, in defense of the action, said it is within his sphere of competence and was at the express request of many member states. Nigeria and other countries are, however, dismayed at the lack of sufficient consultation and transparency, especially in view of Africa's strong support for the two-state solution. Records show that President Buhari's Nigeria maintains cordial relations with Israel, but remains unflinching in its position on a two-state solution to the crisis between Israel and Palestine, as well as full respect of the human rights of Palestinians. Consequently, to avoid needless division amongst member states on the matter, the African leaders resolved by consensus to suspend the decision taken by the AU chairperson. A committee of 7 African leaders is therefore created to make recommendations to the AU summit, which remains worried over the development. The newly elected chairperson of the African Union and Senegalese leader Macky Sall is to chair the committee. He is therefore expected to take the initiative of launching the works of the high-level committee. In the meantime, the summit, which ended on Sunday, condemned in strong terms the recent wave of military coups in parts of the continent. The African leaders, who described the unconstitutional changes of government as inimical to peace, stability and development, ratified the suspension of Sudan, Guinea, Mali and Burkina Faso from the bloc. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari is back in the country after a successful outing at the African Union Summit in Ethiopia, the land of origins. He was received on arrival at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport by the FCT Minister Muhammad Musa Bello, Inspector General of Police Usman Alkali Baba, Director General, Department of State Services Yusuf Magaji Bichi, and other senior government officials. In Abuja, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
The role of professionals in politics and nation building is the issue that dominates the discussion at the inaugural conference of the All Progressives Congress Professionals Forum held in Abuja Monday. In his remarks at the event, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo observes that the future of a nation depends on professionals who are prepared to live up to their professional calling. State House correspondent Jide Onifade reports.
There is a saying that a bird does not fly with only one wing, and so it is with politics and governance, or rather, politicians and professionals.
Basically, there are the challenges, but what I know is that once you bring your skill, your professionalism to system, say no when you need to say no, say yes when you need to say yes, then you know you have a place in the political space.
I know that part of the problems we have is that the professionals, when they go into politics, they abandon their ethics, because professional comes with ethics.
There's nothing as discouraging as when it's time for appointments, you begin to bring strangers, all in the name of experts, technocrats, who were not there when the campaigns were going on.
The argument here is of two folds. While some decried the non-involvement of the elite in politics, others are of the view that professionals in politics are not adequately utilized. Whichever way it is, the Vice President underscores the need for every Nigerian to get involved in the task of nation building.
Development and prosperity cannot be understood merely as the exceptionalism of a few individuals that manage to prevail against the odds. This is not an adequate response to the challenges that confront us. True progress is about reimagining our collective circumstances and creating an environment that enables prosperity for us all. This is the challenge for us as professionals. It's only through public spiritedness and dedication to the common good that we can, as a people, truly become greater than the sum of our parts.
Discussion by these panelists further emphasized commitment to nation building.
Do well to remember that it is during the lifetime of this administration that the youth, the women, and today the professionals are now picking the gauntlet to show to Nigeria that politics is a serious business.
President Muhammadu Buhari has set up high government administration standard, and we must continue to build on that.
The forum says it aims to harness all available professional skills and expertise in promoting and driving the party manifesto and activities for the benefit of all Nigerians. From the banquet hall of the State House, It's Jide Onifade, NJ News.
Niger State Governor and Chairman, North Central States Governors Forum, Abubakar Sani Bello, has urged the military to intensify efforts in their operations in the state as directed by President Muhammadu Buhari. The governor's plea followed the recent incessant and sporadic increase in attacks by the terrorists in Shiroro, Munya, Rafi, and Paikoro local government areas of the state. In a statement issued by the Chief Press Secretary to the Governor, Mary Noel Bedge, indicates that the Governor decried the constant attacks on many communities and consequential loss of lives and property, including military bases in Alawa and Galadima, Kogo. He expressed displeasure over the heightened nefarious activities of terrorists, noting that criminality is carried out with reckless abandon in a manner that undermines the efforts of the security agencies drafted to the area. While appreciating the efforts of a joint security task force stationed in the embattled communities, the governor renewed his call to the people to assist the security agencies with credible intelligence that will enhance effective operations against the terrorists. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari had recently directed the military to carry out extensive coordinated military onslaught against the terrorists in Niger State. You're watching Panorama on the network service of the NTA. Remember, you can also follow this news live online on our Twitter handle at NTA News Now, on Facebook, Network News, and on our YouTube channel, NTA Live. Our website is nta.ng/live. The news continues shortly.
Nigerians, coronavirus is dangerous. It can kill. When you see this sign, high fever, cough, shortness of breath, drowsiness, pneumonia, don't panic, don't hide, don't embark in self-medication. Promptly visit the nearest medical facility. Report all cases to the nearest hospital. Prevention is key. Avoid contact with infected persons. Avoid crowded areas as much as possible. Wash your hands regularly. Use hand sanitizers. Your life is precious. Stay alive. Live long, live right. This message is sponsored by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture and the Nigerian Film Corporation. Nigerian Film Corporation, powering possibility.
Thank you for staying on. Promoting tolerance and understanding can sometimes be challenging in a heterogeneous country like Nigeria. But as a people who cherish assets like arts and culture, achieving national unity has been simplified. Hingino John Adams examines the role of arts and culture in building a united Nigeria.
As the most populous black nation in the world, Nigeria has diverse and rich cultural heritage. The various languages, dialects, way of dressing, dance steps, and dishes reflect the robust cultural assets of the country. These add to her beauty. Little wonder, they say, variety is the spice of life. The beauty that comes with this heterogeneity is not without some challenges, which may include difficulty in understanding the basic elements of each other's cultures and beliefs, as well as perceived frictions. Arts and culture as people's way of life play a great role in turning the multiplicity of Nigeria into unity.
Culture has been able to bring people together through festivals, through cultural shows and programs. People have been able to adapt to other people's food, adapt to other people's clothing, adapt to other people's even language.
Cultural enthusiasts believe that the country's heterogeneous nature is a good source of strength.
Intentionally, we must teach our children our language. Teach them Igbo, Hausa, Ibibio, whatever, wherever you are from.
They also advocate appreciating other people's way of life to achieve a better Nigeria.
If people have an understanding of the way of life of other people, it promotes some level of understanding, it promotes some level of respect.
Cultural enthusiasts say if Nigerians uphold the saying, "Together we stand and divided we fall," national unity will take the lead. In Lagos, Hinginu John Adams, NTA News.
And joining me live in the studio is Ahmed Mohammed Ahmed, Artistic Director of a National Troupe of Nigeria. Good for you to join us. Okay.
One, there is that level upon which society itself agrees to work together in harmony. Two, there is also the part that government facilitates. So as a society, Nigeria is a ethnic country with about 250 ethnic groups. Some of our cultures are quite distinct, but we know over time, because people travel across, for trade and commerce, and sometimes even for leisure, people learn about other people's cultures. And because culture is also dynamic, people also borrow from other cultures, and impute into their own culture. And they can be able to see others in what they do and also see themselves in what they do. So that's quite essential, as Nigeria, as a people in Nigeria, for us to work, together. Secondly, looking at the government perspective, because government, had policies, on culture, which establishes the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture at the center. And then each state has a Ministry of Culture and Tourism.
Of course.
And in each LGA, we have what we call a cultural officer. These people, these agencies and the persons that are down there at the grassroots are supposed to be mediating, in promoting and preserving our own cultures. And over time, because of, there are some celebrity case, their ways, in terms of their languages, their food, their arts and crafts. People buy from one another. People have opportunities to talk to each other. And then we take certain information from that and go back home, and develop our own resolve to say the people that we thought probably are not good are good, because we are able to see ABC from them, and that's a good one. For us, as a national troupe of Nigeria, we are also showcasing the performative arts of Nigeria. For instance, recently we came up with Strange, which tells the story of how Nigeria got its independence, to the struggles our leaders went through. So people who thought probably we got our independence on the part of God, to show especially our youth, who seem to think that probably they don't have a country, to know that this country is one united, even though we have distinct cultures, but we are looking at how do we really look at those cultures in a positive way.
All right. Now, considering Nigeria's multi-ethnic setting, how can the unity she passionately desires be achieved?
Well, some of the people that have really been showcased have already mentioned that. One, understanding that there is no culture that is more important than the other culture. Everybody must understand that yours is good, but the other person's culture is also good. And the need for us to also open up our mind to learn from one another. That's quite important, because there is nothing that as important as dialogue. Culture helps you to read dialogue, within and outside your own environment, to understand that, development is all about progression. Do you get the point? So dialogue is one key aspect that culture can be able to help us do. And I think I'm also a proponent of not people learning about their language, but also learning another language apart from their own language within that environment. Because it has been said that when you learn a new language, you gain a new soul. If you can be able to speak somebody's language, you have already brought that person over. So if Nigerians can be able to, at least this market, language that you can be able to communicate with people, it's easier.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. So now, briefly, what then are the roles of the government and the citizens in all of this?
The role of government is ensuring that, all the tools that is required for the agencies that needs to work for government are functioning, are available for them to be able to do it, so they can be able to reach the grassroots. For the community, I would say, is for them to open up to new ideas, as culture is dynamic.
Okay. All right. Now, do you think the school curriculum should inculcate all of this? Because we need to start from the basics.
Certainly. because that's exactly where the root of all the issues, lie. Because if our children are being taught the right way, they can be able to, grow and imbibe those values and virtues. That's why, there is a need for us to have history as part of, what we learn. Okay. And like I said, let somebody also learn a new language apart from the language of your mother, so you can be able to reach out to the next community.
All right, thank you very much. Muhammad Ahmed, I've been speaking with the Artistic Director, National Troupe of Nigeria. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us on Panorama today.
Thank you for bringing me in.
Okay, we'll move on to other issues. The federal government has taken delivery of 2 million doses of Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine donated by the European Union. At the official handing over of the vaccine at the National Strategic Cold Store Airport, Abuja, European Union Ambassador to Nigeria, Samuela Isopi, and said the move is a step up to support member countries in Africa where vaccination is lower. Oluseyi Adiago has the details.
The latest delivery of 2 million doses of Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine will no doubt boost the vaccination drive of the federal government nationwide. The addition of vaccines is targeted at the hard-to-reach areas across the country. The federal government had earlier in 2021 procured about 40 million doses of J&J vaccine from the Afrexim Bank through the African Union, availing more Nigerians the opportunity to get vaccinated.
The expiry date for the current batch of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine that have been donated is August of 2023. So we do have a lot of time to be able to ensure that we use up these vaccines.
As we head into the third year since the COVID outbreak, the pandemic is not yet defeated. We must continue to work together to help partner countries to speed up vaccinations and to develop their capacity to manufacture vaccines locally.
The European Union representative and other development partners affirmed their resolve to support member countries in curbing this global pandemic. In Abuja, Oluseyi Adiagbo, NTA News.
Of the technical crew of the Super Eagles, with Augustine Eguavon staying as interim technical advisor, while former Flying Eagles coach Emmanuel Amunike drafted as immediate assistant to Eguavon, and chief coach of the Super Eagles Salisu Yusuf will be second assistant coach and coach of the Chan team, and Yobo third assistant, while Aloyago remains as goalkeeper trainer. After winning the 33rd edition of the African Cup of Nations on Sunday, Senegalese president Macky Sall declared Monday a public holiday to celebrate the national football team, the Teranga Lions' victory over the Pharaohs of Egypt at the final to win the tournament for the very first time in their third final. The Senegalese side will be decorated by the president on Tuesday at the Presidential Palace in Dakar. To European football, England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland and Republic of Ireland have agreed to bid to co-host the Euro 2028 Football Championship and also to drop their aims of hosting the 2030 FIFA World Cup. This will provide the first ever hosting right for Wales, Northern Ireland, and Republic of Ireland. The 5 football associations have come to a collective decision after what they called an extensive feasibility study. Finally, on the World Club Cup, Chelsea will face Al Hilal on Wednesday in the semi-finals of the World Club Cup competition. The Saudi Arabian club sides trashed Abu Dhabi team Al Jazeera 6-1 on Sunday, with Super Eagles striker Odion Igalo amongst the goal scorers on his debut. European Champions League and Super Cup winners Chelsea joined the competition at the last 4 stage. Al Hilal qualified for the World Club competition after winning the Asian Football Confederation's trophy. Chelsea will be hoping to win the competition for the very first time as it commences its campaign with a semi-final clash against Odion Igalo's Al Hilal on Wednesday. Chelsea had to make the trip to Abu Dhabi without its manager Thomas Tuchel, who tested positive for COVID-19 on Saturday. With sports update, Gift George, NTA News.
And that's Panorama came to you live from the Lagos Network Center of the NTA. Remember to join the NTA to stand against rape and rapists. I am Adeola Komiakiri.
This week on Executive Discuss.
In the night, I was sleeping. Then somebody said, you can now mix the herbs.
Who was the somebody?
I don't know. You can now mix the herbs.
But you're sure that
yes,
you heard the voice?
The voice said you can now mix the herbs. So I went back. I remember my grandmother telling me, and then later on telling my mother. I gave Zainab something.
Lady who is in school and he comes back with a phone that is 250,000.
Who gave you? So for those who are about to get married and those who are newly married, have proper sex education classes where people are told what to do.
There's a very thin line between self-esteem and, you know, getting your end result and people saying things that will now hurt your feelings.
Yeah. Technology today has made things quite easy. I went through the depression of anxiety of separation and so on. However, using technology.
A lot of us forget to carry our menstrual pads along. We are so excited. Ooh. This is something that is so important, but for some reason,
we forget.
We forget.
This is the network service of the NTA.
Wildlife refers to animal species that are not domesticated by man. The term also includes all organisms that grow or live wild in an area without being introduced by humans. Wildlife can be found in all ecosystems like deserts, forests, rainforests, plains, grasslands, wetlands, and other areas. Wildlife can be found in all ecosystems like deserts, forests, rainforests, plains, grasslands, wetlands, and other areas. Wildlife species are said to have economic, educational, emotional value for man and society. Sadly, in the quest to satisfy the ever-increasing taste for food and other needs, humans are said to have overexploited wildlife. They are now sources of food, game, medicine, play as pets, as well as attractions for tourism. While these sundry uses of wildlife may not in themselves be seen as negative activities, excessive indulgence has over time resulted in negative consequences for planets, plants, and animals in the wild. Unhealthy use of wildlife resources exposes many species to threats including habitat destruction, degradation, fragmentation, overexploitation, poaching, pollution, and climate change. Many species in Africa, especially Nigeria, have been lost to extinction caused partly by excessive exploitation of these resources. On this episode of Environment Matters, our focus is on sustaining wildlife in Nigeria. The episode will feature a partnership between the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, and Wild Aid against illegal trading and consumption of wildlife in Nigeria. Recent commemoration of Wetlands Day by the global community provides Nigeria an opportunity to project its wetlands potentials in conserving wildlife, and Environment Matters will bring you up to speed with developments on this. You will also get to see Nigeria's larger sustainable environment and climate change mitigation, adaptation, and resilience action plan at an international event, the World Economic Forum Davos Agenda. Welcome. My name is Onengiye Fineface. We begin this episode with a commitment to action for the protection of wildlife in Nigeria. It is a commitment bonded by a shared interest in the well-being of wildlife and natural ecosystems.
Nigeria is Africa's most populous nation, with cultural and media influence throughout the entire continent. But it's facing a conservation crisis. Its wildlife and national parks are highly endangered by poaching and illegal logging. It's the epicenter of the illegal trade in ivory and pangolin scales, with tons of products representing thousands of animals seized in recent times by customs. It has strong demand for illegal bushmeat that endangers animals and risks introduction of zoonotic disease. But Nigeria could be a conservation leader. With Lagos leading the way, Nigeria is updating its wildlife legislation. It's improving its wildlife law enforcement, and it's revolutionizing its public awareness. Wild Aid and its Nigerian partners are launching the largest ever conservation awareness program in Africa to drastically increase coverage of wildlife issues. Working with government agencies, working with the media, working with prominent Nigerian ambassadors.
Report suspicious activity and wildlife crime.
To promote Nigeria's national parks. To promote wildlife law enforcement. To raise awareness of the dangers of illegal bushmeat. And to promote alternatives. Nigeria can go from crisis to becoming a leader in conservation.
So let's do the right thing.
Tell your families and friends to say no to illegal bushmeat.
Keep them wild.
Keep them wild.
Keep them wild. Keep us safe.
And keep us safe.
The Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, in partnership with Wild Aid, is leading a campaign against illegal exploitation of wildlife aimed at raising awareness and educating the public about the dangers of such activities like poaching, illegal wildlife trading, illegal logging, among others.
It's going to be the beginning of a very fruitful collaboration between the two bodies. We in NTA are conscious of our role as the #1 public media in this country, public broadcaster, and we have the sole responsibility of ensuring that the aims and objectives of the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria are publicized for the benefit of all. what wild aid is doing in this country is very vital. Not only to the survival of the wildlife in Nigeria, but to the continued survival of this country. People think that wildlife is wildlife, right? And we can exist, without the wildlife. But in reality, that's not the case. The statistics are shocking, and to learn that Nigeria is the epicenter of this illegal trade, it's alarming. And we have a responsibility, to ensure that this is reversed. An immediate stop is put to it, and it is eventually reversed. I'd like to assure you that we in NTA are willing, we are very eager, to work with you and other like-minded individuals and organizations towards the achievement of this very laudable objective of protecting wildlife, not only in Nigeria, but in the world at large. But they say charity begins at home. So we have to start from home. And the statistics at home are shocking. So we have a responsibility, if we can help in reversing the trend, in whatever way, I think we'll be very glad to do that. So I would like to assure you that we'll be willing to work with you. That's why we have the Executive Director of Programs and the Executive Director of News, with whom you've met and you've already started talking. We will be prepared to produce jingles, produce programs with content, with inputs from your own side, so that the story is told, in pictures. When you see the story in pictures, you get to realize the gravity of the thing we have to deal with.
Wild Aid is a non-profit organization with a mission to protect wildlife from illegal trade and other imminent threats. Wild Aid primarily works to reduce global trade in the consumption of wildlife products such as elephant ivory, rhino horn, and shark fin.
It also, things like the lions get caught in snares set for the bushmeat. The elephants get their trunks caught in there. So it's a pretty bad situation right now, but the government is determined, I think, to change this and turn this round. There is a new piece of legislation which will be going through this year to upgrade the laws here. We just met earlier today with Customs. We're working with introducing sniffer dogs to help detect the ivory and the pangolin scales. And then we are working with various media like yourselves, hopefully, to educate people about what's going on, to raise the awareness. And I have to say, every single Nigerian I've spoken to, and when I say there's only 50 lions left, they are shocked. Every single person is shocked, and also feel that something needs to be done about it. So we're very much looking forward, if possible, to having a fantastic collaboration with NTA. That will involve, hopefully, doing a joint campaign together, but then also looking at areas where we might do co-productions, that we can perhaps provide a little bit of finance to help do programming around wildlife and around environment, and do things like provide B-roll footage and things like that. We have a stock of wild footage of elephants, for example, to illustrate stories, and hopefully work with you to co-produce some really great pieces on environment. And in conjunction with Ministry of Environment, the messages we would like to do would be co-branded with the Ministry of Environment and yourselves, hopefully. And we're very open to any ideas or suggestions to NTA of ideas on programming around wildlife and nature and conservation that we could collaborate on.
We reached out to NTA because we recognize the huge role you play in our society back here. NTA is a very big media company in Nigeria with dozens, if not, a lot of channels, so huge that I've lost count. And regardless of, how widespread digital satellite services are today, free-to-air TV is still very predominant. I think the last research showed that we have more than 50 million viewers, tune into free-to-air services, if the number is not more than that. And a collaboration with NTA would really go a long way to help us turn things around, because we believe that through NTA would get this message to millions and millions of Nigerians.
Now, wetlands are ecosystems where water is the primary factor controlling the environment and the associated plant and animal life. These lands are critical to people and nature. given the intrinsic value of these ecosystems and their benefits and services, including the environmental, climate, ecological, social, economic, scientific, educational, cultural, recreational, and aesthetic contributions to sustainable development and human well-being. Though they cover only around 6% of the Earth's land surface, 40% of all plant and animal species are said to live or breed in wetlands. Wetlands biodiversity matters for our health, our food supply, for tourism, and for jobs. Wetlands are vital for humans, for other ecosystems, and for our climate, providing essential ecosystem services such as water regulation, including flood control and water purification. More than 1 billion people across the world depend on wetlands for their livelihoods.
Wetlands, these amazing places on our planet, these amazing places with life on Earth, from flood protection to filtering wastewater to tackling climate change. Wetlands are important for human health and for our well-being. When we protect and when we use wisely and when we restore wetlands, we safeguard what matters most, because 4 billion people rely on the services that wetlands provide. This is a UN decade of ecosystem restoration. This is a decade of action. So let's use World Wetlands Day as a chance to reset our relationship with these critical and unbelievably beautiful ecosystems for the benefit of people and planet.
As important as wetlands are, they are among the ecosystems with the highest rate of decline, loss, and degradation. Indicators of current negative trends in global biodiversity and ecosystems functions are projected to continue in response to direct and indirect drivers such as rapid human population growth, unsustainable production and consumption, and associated technological development, as well as the adverse impacts of climate change.
Destroying wetlands deprives communities of these benefits and can result in reduced forest productivity, decreased biodiversity, and an increase in pests and diseases. Like so much else, wetlands are both impacted by and drive climate change. They're impacted by reduced precipitation, saltwater intrusion, factory or farm pollutants, and these can result in a dangerous imbalance of nutrients and minerals. Since they are essential for flood protection and are enormous carbon sinks, their destruction also takes us further down the path of climate vulnerability. If we want to protect and restore wetlands, addressing climate change must be part of the equation. We need all nations on board. We thus encourage all countries to launch their NAP process and to integrate the protection of wetlands into the process. Ladies and gentlemen, by working to restore and protect wetlands, we can protect this vital link in our fragile ecosystem that supports life on our planet. We can protect wildlife and the animals who live in these regions. We can improve the livelihoods of people who depend on wetlands. And by preserving and restoring wetlands, we can help curtail global heating and, in due time perhaps, even reverse climate change.
It is more urgent than ever to scale up actions to conserve and restore wetlands. We know how to do it. We know that these actions have critical benefits for nature or for the 1 billion people who depend directly on them. As the international community develops the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework and commit to stronger climate responses, it is critical to integrate in both agendas actions for wetlands to deliver the greatest impact for nature, climate, and people.
The sustainable use of wetlands and water resources is vital for sustainable ecosystems, for preserving the rich biodiversity in wetlands, for mitigating and adapting to the impacts of the climate crisis, and for ensuring the supply of fresh water and other vital ecosystem services needed for the health and well-being of the people and the planet. Wetlands and water resources played crucial and irreplaceable roles in achieving the 2030 Agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals. On this first celebration of UN World Wetlands Day, let us act together and take care of our wetlands as a healthy kidney on planet for better production, better nutrition, a better environment, and a better life for all, leaving no one behind.
In commemorating the 2022 Wetlands Day, the Federal Ministry of Environment placed a spotlight on the Chapchapno wetland in Jigawa State, said to be a haven for biodiversity, while also serving as a source of livelihood for members of the community who use the water for irrigation farming and sustenance of livestock.
We want to ensure that there is local and national actions and awareness drawing us to the preservation and conservation of our biodiversity. But the unique components of these our wetlands cannot be overemphasized. We've heard about the functions: water purification, water storage, processing of carbon and other nutrients, stabilization of our shorelines, support of plants and animals, and we've talked about the migratory birds coming. But for me, the most important of all is the multi-sectoral job creation for millions of our people who live around the several wetlands we have. The resources in our wetlands in Nigeria are highly valuable, not only containing fish, reptiles, mammals, amphibian species, and bird species, a lot of which we have been losing, but with the creation of awareness and actions around it, we should be able to bring them back to their lost glory. But at the same time, Nigeria's wetlands endowments stand out in Africa as being one of the internationally recognized wetlands in the world. Majority of our wetlands in Nigeria, apart from here, are found in the Niger Delta, Benue, Chad Basin, and in fact the coast of Nigeria as well. But 11 of these have so far been designated as a Ramsar site.
Wetlands are disappearing 3 times faster than forests and are Earth's most threatened ecosystems. In just 50 years since 1970, 35% of the world's wetlands have been lost.
Our protected areas will have to be conserved. We have to enhance ecosystem resilience. We will use it to mitigate climate change impacts. But most important of all is to support socio-economic development of our people, which is at the heart of the government of today. So we commit to all international agreements, conventions, and treaties in pursuance of our global agenda towards sustainable environment, combating climate change, and having a healthy environment. We also strongly support the 30 by 30 campaign of the Global Biodiversity Framework, which seeks to designate 30% of the world oceans and 30% of lands for sustainable development by 2030. And Nigeria is meeting this target with the 10 new national parks that the president has approved, which will now be protected areas, and 2 of them will be marine protected areas in Nigeria.
We We now turn our attention to the articulation of Nigeria's plans for sustainable environment and climate action at the 2022 World Economic Forum, Davos Agenda.
It's now common knowledge that Africa contributes least to climate change, but has been the most negatively affected by it. We must not allow this worrying situation to be compounded further by global inaction and processes and rules that make it difficult for Africa to adapt to climate change or indeed to develop. This is why the international community must meet its pledge, recently reaffirmed at COP26, of providing $100 billion annually in climate finance to support climate change efforts in developing countries. Although we in Africa are working towards the globally accepted net zero future, we're also conscious that our energy needs are increasing with the growth in our economies. We need to ramp up energy access in response to this situation, which is why the transition from fossil fuels to renewable energies must be just and fair. We're emphatic in our view that natural gas, which Africa has in abundance, must be accepted as a transition fuel. Moves in the international community, especially by development finance institutions, to defund gas projects will have severe implications in the medium to long term for African economies and will slow down the process of phasing out more polluting fuels such as coal, diesel, and heavy fuel oil. In addition, of course, to some of the more polluting fuels that are currently in use.
That's it on Environment Matters this week. Many thanks for your time. Do remember to join us same time for another episode of the program. My name is Onengiye Fineface. Bye-bye.